Today's date is August 12th, 2011. Time in 2:30 p.m. It's 2:30 p.m. I have 15 minutes to record as much as I can read. Here, this is business class, my business class book on business law. Shall I begin? I shall. Okay, the name of this is Improving Corporate Governance and Corporate Social Responsibility. Even if we cannot stop all fraudulent executives, we can modify the corporate governance model to educate, motivate, and supervise executives and thereby improve corporate social responsibility. Corporate critics have proposed a wide variety of cures, all of which have been implemented to some degree and which varying degrees of success. Ethic codes. Many large corporations and several industries have adopted codes of ethics or codes of conduct to guide executives and other employees. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires a public company to disclose whether it has adopted a code of ethics for senior financial officers and to disclose any change in the code or waiver of the code's application. There are two popular views of such codes. One sees the codes as genuine efforts to foster ethical behavior within a firm or an industry. The other view regards them as thinly disguised attempts to make the firm function better, to mislead the public into believing the firm behaves ethically, to prevent the passage of legislation that would impose stricter constraints on business or to limit competition. Under the veil of ethical standards, even where the first view is correct, ethical codes fail to address concretely all possible forms of the corporate misbehavior. Instead, they often emphasize either the behavior required for the firm's effective internal functions, such as not accepting gifts from customers, or the relations between competitors within particular industries, such as prohibitions on some types of advertising. Better corporate ethics codes make clear that the corporation expects employees not to violate the law in a mistaken belief that loyalty to the corporation or corporate profitability requires it. Such codes work best, however, when a corporation also gives its employees an outlet for dealing with a superior's request to do an unethical act. That outlet may be the corporate legal department or corporate ethics office. One example is Google's Code of Ethics, which appears on the next page. Ethical instruction. Some corporations require their employees to enroll in classes that teach ethical decision making. The idea is that a manager trained in ethical conduct will recognize unethical actions before they are taken and deter herself and the corporation from the unethical acts. While promising in theory, in practice, many managers are resistant to ethical training that requires them to examine their principles. They are reluctant to set aside a set of long-held principles with which they are comfortable. Therefore, there are some doubts whether managers are receptive to ethical instruction. Even if the training is accepted, will managers retain the ethical lessons of their training and use it? Or will time and other job-related pressures force a manager to think only of completing the job at hand? Moreover, what ethical values should be taught? Is it enough to teach only one, a few, or all the theories of ethical conduct? Corporations mostly support profit maximization because it maximizes shareholder value. But should a corporation also teach rights theory and expect its employees to follow it? Or should rights theory be treated as only a component of profit maximization? Most major corporations today explore their dedication to ethical decision making by having ethics officers who is not only responsible for ethical instruction but also in charge of ethical supervision. The ethics officer may attempt to instill ethical decision making as a component of daily corporate life by sensitizing employees to the perils of ignoring ethical issues. The ethics officer may also be a mentor or sounding board for all employees who face ethical issues. Whether an ethics officer is effective, however, is determined by the level of commitment top executives make to ethical behavior and the position and power granted to the ethics officer. For example, will top executives and the board of directors allow an ethics officer to nix an important deal on ethical grounds? Or will they replace the ethics officer with another executive whose ethical views permit the deal? Therefore, probably more important than an ethics officer is a CEO with the character to do the right thing. Greater shareholder role in corporations. Since shareholders are the ultimate stakeholders in a corporation in a capitalist economy, some corporate critics argue that business should be more attuned to shareholders' ethical values and that shareholders' control of the board of directors and executives should be increased. This decentralization of ethical decision making, the theory goes, should result in corporate decisions that better reflect shareholders' ethical values. Yet this decentralization of power flies in the face of the rationale for the modern corporation, which in part is designed to centralize management in the board of directors and top officers and to free shareholders from the burden of managing their investments in the corporation. Significant efficiencies are lost if corporate executives are required to divine and apply shareholders' ethical values before making a decision. In addition, divining the shareholders' ethical viewpoint may be difficult. While nearly all shareholders are mostly profit driven, a small minority of shareholders have other agendas such as protecting the environment or workers' rights, regardless as protecting the environment or workers' rights, regardless of those costs to the corporation. It is often not possible to please all shareholders. Nonetheless, increasing shareholder democracy by enhancing the shareholder role in the domination and election of board members is essential to uniting the interests of shareholders and management. So is facilitating the ability of shareholders to bring proposals for ethical policy to a vote of shareholders. In the last several years, for public companies at least, the Securities and Exchange Commission has taken several steps to increase shareholder democracy. These steps, which are covered fully in Chapter 45, are having their intended effect. For example, shareholders of EMC Corporation approved a proposal recommending that the company's board comprise a majority of independent directors. Mentor Corporation shareholders voted in the resolution that any significant stock option plan be shareholder approved. Moreover, the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ Nasdaq require companies listed on those exchanges to submit for shareholders approval certain actions such as approval of stock option plans. Consider all stakeholders' interests. Utilitarianism analysis clearly requires an executive to consider a decision's impact on all stakeholders. How else can one determine all the benefits and costs of the decision? Likewise, modern rights theories also dictate considering all stakeholders' rights, including not comprising an important right unless trumped by another. Kant's categorical imperative also mandates a concern for others by requiring one to act as one would require others to act. Critics of corporations and modern proponents of profit maximization argue that more responsible and ethical decisions are made when corporate managers consider the interests of all stakeholders, including not only shareholders, but also employees, customers, suppliers, the community, and other impacted by this decision. For profit maximizers, the wisdom of considering all stakeholders is apparent because ignoring the interests of any stakeholder may negatively affect profits. For example, decision may impact a firm's ability to attract high quality employee, antagonize customers, alienate suppliers, and motivate the public to lobby lawmakers to pass laws that increase a firm's cost of doing business. This wisdom is reflected in the guidelines for ethical decision making, which you will learn in the next section. Nonetheless, there are challenges when a corporate manager considers the interests of all stakeholders beyond the enormity of identifying all stakeholders. Stakeholders' interests may conflict, requiring a compromise that harms some stakeholders and benefits others. In addition, the impact on each stakeholder group may be difficult to assess accurately. For example, if a manager is considering whether to terminate that 500 least productive employees during an economic downturn, the manager will note that shareholders will benefit from lower labor costs and consumers may find lower prices for goods. But the manager also knows that the terminated employees, their families, and their communities will likely suffer from the loss of income. Yet, if the employee terminated are near retirement and have sizable retirement savings, or if the termination motivates employees to return to college and seek better jobs, the impact on them, their families, and their communities may be minimal or even positive. On the other hand, if the manager makes the decision to retain the employee shareholders, wealth may decrease and economic inefficiencies may result, which harms all society. Okay, 10 minutes into it, I think I can do this and maybe. Ethics in action. Google Code of Conduct. Internet giant Google Inc. is one of many international corporations to adopt an ethics code. Here are excerpts from Google's Code of Ethics for its employees and board of directors. For a look at Google's complete Code of Ethics, go to http://investor.google.com/conduct.html. Preface. Don't be evil. Googlers generally apply those words to how we serve our users. But don't be evil is much more than that. Yes, it's about providing our users unbiased access to information, focusing on their needs, and giving them the best products and services that we can. But it's all about doing the right thing more generally, following the law, acting honorably, and treating each other with respect. The Google Code of Conduct is one of the ways we put don't be evil into practice. It's built around the recognition that everything we do in connection with our work at Google will be and should be measured against the highest possible standards of ethical business conduct. We hire great people who work hard to build great products, and it's essential that we build an environment of trust among ourselves and with our users. That trust and mutual respect underlie our success, and we need to earn it every day. So please do read the code and follow it, always bearing in mind that each of us has a personal responsibility to incorporate and to encourage other Googlers to incorporate the principle of the code into our work. 1. Serve our users. Our users value Google not only because we deliver great products and service, but also because we hold ourselves to a higher standard in how we treat users and operate more generally. Keeping the following principles in mind will help us to maintain that high standard. A. Integrity. Our reputation as a company that our users can trust is our most valuable asset, and it is up to all of us to make sure that we continually earn that trust. All of our communications and other interactions with our users should increase their trust in us. Privacy. As we develop great products that serve our users' needs, always remember that we are asking users to trust us with their personal information. Preserving that trust requires that each of us respect and protect the privacy of that information. Our security procedures strictly limit access to and use of users' personal information. Know your responsibilities under these procedures and access data only as authorized by them. Our privacy policy and applicable local data protection laws. 2. Respect each other. We are committed to a supportive work environment where employees have the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. Each Googler is expected to do his or her utmost to create a respectful workplace culture that is free of harassment, intimidation, bias, and unlawful discrimination of any kind. 3. Avoid conflicts of interest. In working at Google, we have an obligation to always do what's best for the company and our users. When you are in a position to influence a decision or situation that may result in personal benefit for you or your friends or family at the expense of Google or our users, you may be subject to a conflict of interest. All of us should avoid circumstances that present even the appearance of such a conflict. When faced with a potential conflict of interest, ask yourself, would this relationship or situation embarrass me or Google if it showed up on the front page of a newspaper or the top of a blog? Am I reluctant to disclose a relationship or situation to my manager, legal or ethics and compliance? If I wanted to, could I exploit the potential relationship or situation in a way that benefited me, my friends, or family, or an associated business at the expense of Google? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, the relationship or situation is like to create conflict of interest and you should avoid it. 6. Ensure financial integrity and responsibility. 7. Obey the law. 8. Conclusion. Okay, I'm not going to be able to finish that, but ensure financial integrity and responsibility. Financial integrity and fiscal responsibility are core aspects of corporate professionalism. Obey the law. Google takes its responsibility to comply with laws and regulations very seriously, and each of us is expected to comply with applicable legal requirements and prohibitions. Conclusion. Google aspires to be a different kind of company. It's impossible to spell out every possible ethical scenario we might face. That is the end of this reading from my business law class.